So MAGA gets really upset whenever we refer to Donald Trump as a dictator, and they get really upset when we compare him to 1930s Germany, but then he goes around throwing around words and using rhetoric that was used during 1930s Germany. Now Donald Trump is freely throwing around the word remigration, and this is a story that I think should alarm all Americans because the definition of remigration is the act of returning to one's original or previous home. Now, the argument I have against this is we are a land of immigrants. That's what we are. So how exactly do you go about defining this? Let's say you send someone back to Mexico because that's their original country. Couldn't you just as easily turn around and say, well, we're going to send Brando back to Ireland or Scotland where his families came from? I don't think they've thought this one through. Actually, I take that back. They have thought this one through. And what it basically boils down to is that Donald Trump hates brown people and has ever since he's been in the political arena and long before that. He started off his whole career on a birther conspiracy against Barack Obama and on building a wall. And I remember the first time I ever heard him say build a wall, I said, wait a minute, we were taught when I was a kid that if someone builds a wall to keep people out, that same wall can be used to keep people in. But Donald Trump's rhetoric is right straight out of 1930s Germany. And then when you hear someone like Kristi Noem go on TV and try to explain it, well, she has a really bad case of what we're going to now refer to as BBS, and that is blame Biden syndrome. Take a look at this.
President Trump wrote on Thursday, quote, only reverse migration can fully cure this situation. On Friday, DHS posted, quote, remigration now. As you probably know, this term has been used in different situations, but including by the far right in Europe to call for the mass deportation of non-white immigrants. How specifically does the Trump administration define remigration?
Well, President Trump has been working towards cleaning up the mess that Joe Biden left us ever since he came into the White House.
But how do you define that word,
know,
Secretary Noem?
Biden
How do you define that word?
Well, first of all, we have criminal illegal aliens we've been targeting since day one. We have removed millions of people from this country already just in the few short months that President Trump has been president by making sure we're going after criminal illegal aliens that are murderers, rapists, and criminals and getting them out of our country, bringing them to justice, and then encouraging people to go home. If you're here illegally and breaking our laws, you can leave now, and you may get the opportunity to come back someday. But if you wait until we detain you, and we will deport you, and you'll never get the chance to come back to America and visit us or become a citizen.
You know, you would really be hard-pressed to find anyone in Donald Trump's regime, Donald Trump himself included, who could answer a question and not say the name Joe Biden. I don't think it's ever been done. If anyone out there knows of a time when they didn't circle back and blame something on Joe Biden, let me know. But how the hell could she say that they've been targeting criminals when we saw them go to Home Depots, when we saw them take away people's lawn mowing crew, when we saw them zip tying children? When we saw people sent out of this country without due process, and we never saw any evidence or anything at all to point to them being a criminal. It never points that way. It's just they accuse people of it and they toss them out. And again, if you're going to start throwing around the word remigration, which means sending one back to their original country, this is not any of our original country. None of us, this is not where our families came from. So you could definitely make the argument that any of us could be sent home, and that's why I feel this is so dangerous. But it just all boils down to Donald Trump's racism, and I'm glad that Mark Kelly pointed that out in this next clip.
He said he was going to go after drug dealers, gang members, criminals. What we've seen so far is a little bit of that and a lot of just breaking up communities, going after people like Kelly Yu, who is in an ICE detention center in Phoenix, who I visited, who is a business owner. She's got 70 employees. She fled China 20 years ago, fleeing communist China, came to this country. She is undocumented. Her mom's a U.S. citizen, her kid's a U.S. citizen, sister's a U.S. citizen. She has a deportation order. She is no threat to anybody. There are hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of these people.
But these are legal immigrants that he's talking about. And
he's kicked out legal immigrants already. This is kind of more of the same from this president. When he says things like third world countries, what is he really saying? I think what he's saying is he doesn't want brown people in our country. And that is disturbing, and it's un-American.
Yeah, whenever Donald Trump uses phrases like third world countries or he refers to people as violent gang members and says things like we got to root out the vermin, that's all right out of 1930s Germany and is straight up racist, and we're going to call it out as such. So, how many times have you turned on the news just for the highlights, and the next thing you know, you're yelling at the screen like it can hear you? Well, IndaCloud can help you switch off all the craziness in the world. IndaCloud is your online cannabis dispensary, gummies, flower, pre-rolls, and more. All federally legal THC, DEA certified, lab tested, and shipped discreet. When the headlines won't stop, at least your brain can. You know, for a while I had been looking for something that would just help me to wind down after I get done talking and consuming all of this news. I just needed something to take my mind off things and take the edge off. And I found these IndaCloud Bliss gummies in the elderberry flavor, and ever since then I have been getting really good night's sleep. So you can get better sleep when the world won't slow down, a calmer buzz when the group chat gets too loud, potent pre-rolls for when your brain won't stop fact-checking itself, and $70 ounces. That's less than your monthly coffee spend. So if you're 21 or older, head on over to indacloud.co and enter the code Brando. You'll get 40% off on your first order plus free shipping. This is IndaCloud's biggest sale of the year, and it lasts all month, because peace of mind should not expire in just half a day. That's indacloud.co, code Brando, 40% off, free shipping, and a quieter break. As always, folks, please enjoy these responsibly, and thanks to IndaCloud for sponsoring today's show. It's very clear what Donald Trump is trying to do here, because it's always targeting brown people, or he will use the phrase Democrat-ran cities, which he will go in and target brown people. It always boils down to that every time with this president, and it should absolutely alarm everybody that he uses this kind of language, and not just uses the language, but goes out here and puts these policies forward, and we see them playing out on the streets. When we see children zip-tied, and we see families, and we see communities broke apart, there's been a whole lot more of that than there has been violent gang members sent out of here. And again, we're all for violent gang members and criminals being, detained and held accountable according to the Constitution and according to the law. But we have an administration that gives us no evidence whatsoever, and we're just supposed to take their word for it. And I'm never going to take an administration seriously that the majority of them is made up of former Fox News hosts. I'm never going to do that. I'm going to read you an article, though, here. This is a few weeks old. But this article here does a really good job of breaking down the history on remigration and what it means. So I'm going to read you just a little bit of this one here because I think it's important that we understand where this came from. This comes to us from CNN. Extremism expert Cynthia Miller-Idris was researching Nazi iconography for her 2019 book when she said she came across an image that made her pause. The picture, emblazoned on a shirt, showed Jewish people being loaded onto a ship bound for Madagascar. It was captioned, "Have a nice trip." And it was a reference to the Nazis' Madagascar plan. In the late 1930s, before the concentration camps and gas chambers, there was a solution to remigrate Jews to Madagascar. Indeed, Adolf Hitler weighed multiple remigration policies and other anti-Semitic proposals before arriving at his final devastating solution to the Jewish question, the Holocaust. And although the world vowed never again, Miller-Idris said decades later neo-Nazis were proudly wearing references to the anti-Semitic remigration proposal on T-shirts. Remigration is the idea that you should send people who don't belong in this country to another place, Miller said. While remigration isn't often used in daily conversation, Miller told CNN in recent years that the concept has found a champion in new far-right conspiracy theory, the Great Replacement Theory. The far right believes any particular state that has a white authority population that wants to retain it or restore it, you would have to get rid of people of color, Miller said. And you either do that violently or by remigrating them. Although many likely never heard of the replacement theory, we've all lived through its violent consequences. In July of 2011, a Norwegian neo-Nazi went on a rampage, detonating a bomb in Norway before opening fire at a Labour Party youth camp on nearby Utøya Island. He killed 77 people. In the aftermath, experts began wading through the 1,500-page manifesto the terrorists reportedly posted online just before the attack, and they found it was riddled with references to the Great Replacement Theory, a once fringe conspiracy that falsely argues a shadowy cabal is conspiring to eradicate white European population by replacing them with non-European immigrants. And I'm not going to play any of his clips, but if you go over and watch anything to do with Tucker Carlson and listen to him talk for 5 minutes, he is always talking about how that, oh, suddenly we're not going to have any more white people. What's up with that? And we're all going to be gay. It's like, it's so ridiculous that people even thinks about that or cares. I can honestly tell you that it has never crossed my mind that, oh, one day there might not be white people. I don't even think that way. Like, I don't care. We're going to evolve. We're going to move forward one way or the other. And if I'm lucky and I live to the average lifespan, I might have another 30 years on this planet, if that. So I'm lucky to get what little time I've got. I don't really care what happens 100 or 1,000 years from now. I don't care what people evolves into, because that's just evolution and I don't have a problem with it. I never waste my time thinking about it. I also don't do like Tucker Carlson and sit there worried about people becoming gay. I don't have those thoughts. They don't go through my head. But what does go through my head is having a president who governs like a dictator. If you'll notice, all of the things he does, he just throws it out on social media. He doesn't take any of it before Congress. He doesn't ask anybody to vote on anything. That's not a democracy. We do not live under a democracy at the moment. And I know people's going, oh, you're trying to spread hysteria. No, I'm not. I'm just being realistic. He says something on his True Social platform, and then everybody jumps on the news and says, oh, that's what we're doing next. And nobody ever steps forward and says anything. It's crazy that we're in this world, and it's crazy that a term like remigration is coming up. This was supposed to be the land of the free. This was supposed to be the place that people came to live the American dream. But Donald Trump threw the phrase American dream in the garbage a long time ago, and he does not believe in it. And the truth of the matter is, he never has. He's only about making his rich friends richer. And the only way that he would have anyone of color around him is if they were rich. That's it. He does not care about poor people at all. He doesn't care about working people. He was able to manipulate working white people into thinking they were better than the most educated of black people. And like Lyndon Johnson said, if you can do that, they will empty out their pockets for you. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing unfold in Donald Trump's America.